I haven't got time to mark this motherfucker. Here we go again. We can't hear anybody. Nobody can talk to anybody.
You guessed it, Pressure Points with your two favorite hosts. I'm Dee, and this is Mobster AJ. We're coming at you with Season 7, Episode 5, The Suka Wars. AJ actually went and infiltrated the Russian Mafia, and he's going to share some Cold War secrets with us today. So find us on Instagram and Patreon at pointsopressure.com. Let's get to it.
Well, turn the fucking thing off, you dumbass.
That's true. I did.
I know.
I went actually back in time to infiltrate them.
No, you just found the hidden documents, the hidden scrolls that had all this information
the
on
toilet paper scrolls, yeah. Just like V for Vendetta.
The Gulag scrolls.
Yeah, except I'm not crying. No, it's, this kind of came about because of a D&D thing that we're doing.
Yeah.
That's fantastic so far.
It was a lot of fun.
Did our first session yesterday, 2 days ago, if you're listening to this on the day it came out.
Yeah.
And it's a ton of fun. Kind of mobster themed, modern day, but we're having a blast.
Yeah, it's
when I don't have to worry about which skill I need to roll
that
for.
That was kind of what we talked about last night, because it's a very non-combat, it's just like extremely RP front, like RP heavy for the campaign. It's a little like 5 to 10 session thing that my girlfriend has put together. She put a ton of fucking work into it.
She's killing it.
And yeah, it's all just like D&D role playing, but we're all mafia, and it's current day, and it's fucking insane.
The characters, I gotta say, both the NPCs that she's come up with and the characters that every single person is put into have been so perfect.
It's been really cool.
Like, we're excited. We're excited for the next one. So
yeah,
but I had to do a lot of research because my character is a Russian mobster.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be true to life in this fantasy game. As I do. It's really on brand for me. But so I started looking into the Russian mob. Because, I've got every other American's experience of the Russian mob, and it's the story about that guy who's the machine.
Yeah.
That's extent of the knowledge of the average American for the Russian Mafia. So I looked into it, and I found some very interesting historical events, including the Suka Wars.
Suka Wars.
Which, if you don't know Russian, Suka means bitch. So, it's the bitch wars. So I'm going to give a little bit of background to start off.
Okay.
You're and then I'll
jumping
get into
right
the event.
into
We're
it.
jumping in. I mean, I guess we could do, how's your week?
I mean, it was all right. Nothing new.
Perfect, same. It's really nice not being in school. Got my license done.
Yeah, shit. You're
Applied
like
for a
fully
job.
graduated. You're out.
I'm out. I'm ready
Starting
to get
bake
back
bread
in.
and shit. Getting back into that depression. Hell yeah.
Fuck yeah. Hey, when you're distracted, you can't be depressed. So, you can be depressed, but you're not going to be baking bread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
so,
good.
Perfect.
Congratulations.
Sorry. I really should have stretched that intro further because not a huge episode today,
you're
probably.
good.
But
No
we'll
sweat.
see. We'll see.
No worries. That's what. Hey, you told me to derail like
I
crazy,
did.
so I got you.
So, and you can ask all sorts of trivia questions. I'll answer them.
As best
I'll
as
make
you
it up.
can.
I'll make it up if I need to. So, the Russian Empire with the Tsars or the Tsars or the 1720s is really where our story begins. America's not even here yet.
Thank God.
Yeah. And that's kind of where the bones of modern day Russian mafia start.
The meat and potatoes have you.
This is where they begin.
Okay.
But then the next big event that really catapulted them into the relevance that they have today, which is much more than I thought, were the gulags of the Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
So in the 1700s, you have this wealth split that is very similar to modern-day America. I don't know if that's true, but, you have a bunch of rich bitches controlling everything, and then you have a ton of peasants.
We actually talk a little bit about that in I referenced it in the exclusive Woman Scorned. I didn't mean to reference it, but it was that episode. I talked about a Russian like woman leader.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that like just went all out because I think they killed her husband. Season 3 episode.
It's not a season. It's an exclusive.
No, not that one.
Oh.
Like the actual episode is in season 3. It's like episode 18 or some shit.
A Woman Scorned.
Yeah,
Fantastic
A Woman
episode.
Scorned. It's a really cool one. I just talked about, or I incorrectly referenced it in the exclusive for January that came out on February 4th.
Yeah, I got you. Hey, check out Instagram.com/pointsofpressure and the Patreon, patreon.com/pointsofpressure.
Yeah.
And also www.pointsofpressure.com.
Definitely the Instagram. Keep your eyes on it.
Yes.
We're
Got some
gonna
plans.
have some stuff coming out. If you are a Patreon subscriber, also keep your eyes out there. On Patreon, heads up. If you make a free account for our Patreon, it's not even like one of those, a 7-day free trial. It's none of that shit. It's an actual free account.
I think you get one exclusive, a couple sloppy seconds.
Yeah, you'll get like exclusives every so often. We'll release those, and then sloppy seconds, and then we'll also have other things that we'll make available on there in the future. So go on there, check it out. We'd appreciate it. And if you aren't already following us on Instagram, please do it. She puts a ton of work in. And
I love
she made a really fucking cool reel about the balloons this last week that has actual footage of it. So go check it out.
It's really cool. I love
really
going
work.
through the account, looking at the pictures and the videos. And
there's a lot of really good stuff on there.
So lots of peasants, lots of rich people.
Uh-huh.
You have a real, like, Robin Hood-esque situation forming, right?
Huh.
So
Give it about 10 years and it's going to be really relatable.
Yeah, I can't wait. So a bunch of thieves start together as these groups of bandits who would rip off rich people, and they would, to a point, redistribute the wealth to the poors.
Okay.
They would go and be like, all right, I want a loaf of bread, poor baker.
Yeah.
Here's 4 times the value, or stuff like that. They really got this reputation of being Robin Hoods, which is fantastic.
The IRS's worst nightmare.
Yeah. and yeah, fantastic. So I was going to make a foreskin joke because they're Robin Hoods, but I couldn't connect it. So these groups of bandits, these highwaymen even, made a thieves' code.
Okay. Hell yeah.
And like a pirate code, but cooler. Yeah. And that thieves' code, not cooler.
It's all right, but it's
okay.
It's no pirate code.
It's no pirate code. But they actually kept this thieves' code almost forever. Like,
which is in that aspect better than a pirate's code, because
they actually
can't
maintained it.
Keep those.
Yeah, not at all. So like we're gonna fast forward 1917. Lenin is here. Lenin shows up. He is specifically persecuting these thieves guilds almost.
John Lennon? Wow.
John Lennon, yeah. But because the groups had survived up to this point because of their code and because of their almost camaraderie, their brotherhood. Mm-hmm. And they are persecuted heavily in 1917, but they survive. And the code survives.
Okay, hell yeah.
And there's a good chance Stalin was in one of those groups in the next couple of years after that. There are some links that they were the driving factor behind a lot of the revolutions that happened in Russia.
Huh.
They were involved.
They're like pre-KGB, but not KGB.
Pre-mafia, pre-KGB, mafia/KGB.
Hell yeah.
So these different leaders start to kind of emerge. And it's very similar to modern-day mafia families. Not the Italian mafia, what you would see with something like that, but it was like, there's this dude on top, he's got some people below him, and there's like this hierarchy that starts to develop.
Like a standard criminal syndicate, criminal underground kind of structure.
Yeah. And it's now, we're getting into the 1920s, 1930s, and these crime groups are hearing about the mafia in America and in Italy, and they start to actually get some inspiration. They're like, we could do that.
We could run. Fuck it.
Yeah, why can't we do this? Why not? And they start to kind of form a little bit more. They almost modernize in that way. And then
shifted from a thieves guild to an actual
like syndicate. But it's really cool because they were, they kind of maintained with that same code for the most part, pretty much the same code.
Just kind of shifted their focus.
Yeah, up until the gulags of the Soviet Union. So I'm curious, obviously, it's not the same structure as what was going on in the U.S., and obviously when it comes to like the cultural background of Italians versus Russians, Italians obviously are a very family-based cultural ideal, and it's like with Russia, was it that same setup? I know that because it shifted from thieves, like a thieves guild more or pretty
less,
much, yeah,
into like a mafia. Did it stay family side? Did they have like big families that ran things, or was it more so like a group of like, the Black Hearts or whatever the fuck it was, like that, where it's like more of a syndicate or like a mafia families?
That's one of the coolest things I think about learning about this, is that the environmental differences that these groups had that were different from the American and Italian groups really made them not family focused at all.
Okay.
And
That's
I go into it because I talk
figured.
about the code in just a little bit. The first like code of honor thing is to forsake their family.
Oh,
they basically
okay.
say, I don't have a family, I have the syndicate. That's it.
Okay.
So it kind of changed. It's kind of different. And, that kind of goes into when this was, when they were really starting to gain more and more power and become more and more modernized, they did it within the Gulag system. Because if they were, career criminals in Soviet Russia, you're either in the government or you're in a Gulag.
Yeah.
So these groups within the Gulag system start to form and solidify their power while still trying to maintain that code. But it gets harder and harder to maintain that code as time goes on. So we're getting into the 40s.
Okay.
And, there's a war. 30s, I'd say 30s. We're getting into the late 30s. There's wars going on. Also, badass
just a little
prison.
tiny war going on.
Yeah, tiny. Badass prison tattoos.
Oh, hell yeah.
Denoted rank within the system. It was almost like a caste system within the gulags. Man, those tattoos are badass. If you haven't seen like Russian Mafia or Russian crime syndicate tattoos,
I'll pull some up and I'll send them to your.
They are so
our social
cool.
media person.
Yeah, our manager.
Yeah, our manager.
So the code of honor. As I said, the first part was to forsake the family. The next one was to never create a family.
Like those?
Yeah.
Okay. Like they're like the like.
It's like traditional American, but no color and badass.
Like what is that? Orthodox.
Yeah.
Yeah, like an Orthodox Russian Orthodox art style.
It's really cool.
Shit.
Oh, and the hand tattoos are also super cool. But so then you could never create a family. You can, you're not abstaining from anything. It's just don't have a kid.
Yeah.
Don't have a family.
Okay.
Never hold a normal civilian job. If you're in the group, you're in the group for life.
Really? Okay.
Always help other thieves. I'm giving an abridged version.
Oh, okay.
Hide information about accomplices and locations. So like hideouts or stuff like that. Oh, badass. Let's see. Take the blame. This one I thought was really cool. Take the blame if you are in an unavoidable situation. So if you're
Really?
getting like 20 years in prison,
You just take it.
what's the harm to take the blame for a crime that your bro did?
God
If you're
damn.
getting life in prison, you take credit for everything the syndicate's done. Because then it'll stop the investigation. It lets those other people live. Because at
Man.
least if you're going down, you may as well sacrifice. I mean, you don't have to sacrifice anything else, but you may as well let the others, get off.
Yeah, that's true.
I kind of like it. It's kind of a cool idea. I haven't heard something like that. Don't gamble money you don't have. Teach the younger members. Bring people in. Make good on promises to other thieves. So, like, you can lie, cheat, and steal to any civilian, police,
Yeah,
military.
fuck 'em.
Who
Just
gives a
don't-
shit? But if
don't
it's one
fuck
of
with
us,
civilians.
even if it's not your bro,
Yeah.
don't fuck with the thieves. No, fuck the civilians.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
No, you're good. Don't join unions was really interesting because they didn't really have their idea of unions, and like the American capitalist idea of unions are different.
Yeah.
It's basically don't like fuck collective work.
Oh, I see. I mean, it would make sense because the government at the time is obviously
Controlling those.
collective work.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a communist fucking empire. And
Yeah.
so that would make sense why they'd be like, no, fuck that. Like, it's us.
And then never serve with the police, never work with the government, never work with the military. Don't drink until you lose reason. All right.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
I mean, they're just like, fuck Russian culture as well.
No.
Fuck drinking.
No, drink. Just not until you lose reason. You don't be belligerent.
Yeah.
Control yourself. And, there's a couple more in there, but those are the basics. And that gives it a really interesting idea. And some of those concepts are kind of old and out of date, even at this point. Like, into the Soviet Union, into the mid-century. And they're talking about taking the blame and weird stuff with family and not having it. And I don't know, you can kind of see some of the throwbacks and how it's probably evolved over the time. So a lot of these people are in gulags, work camps, or if you remember Nazino Island, the Nazino affair, stuff like that. Penal colonies, special settlements. A lot of it is controlled by these gangs in different aspects and different parts of it. Because what else are you going to do when you've got
Yeah, that's true.
20 years in the gulag?
Yeah.
You're going to align yourself with a gang who will take you. You're going to prove yourself to them, and then your living condition is a lot better. And you're protected. You potentially have better
That's a good point, yeah.
rations, or you get better jobs, depending on the power of that group.
Yeah. Okay.
So it kind of makes sense. I think, at least. But,
I mean, it's exactly how the prison system is set up in...
yeah.
I mean, not the system in the U.S., but it's how prisons are set up. Now you have, like, such a hierarchy of different gangs and shit. Obviously, like, in Hollywood, it's portrayed, like, so much more so. And
Oh, yeah, it's
but,
definitely...
I mean,
amped
it's
up.
still going to exist there.
And these gulags and these settlements and these penal colonies, essentially, are set up in a way... They don't have enough guards to watch over a gulag system of 1.5 million people.
Yeah.
And that's before the Great Purges now. But, so it's set up in a way that some of the gangs kind of self-regulate within the gulag. Like, these guys kind of make the rules, and they run the food. Yeah. And then this gang kind of runs the rules around who gets what job and stuff like that. So the prison guards are kind of like, all right, as long as you don't fuck with us, whatever, you make my job easier because you guys are kind of running it.
Don't complicate my job, and we won't have
escape.
a fucking problem. Yeah.
And it kind of, they basically ran the prison systems for the most part.
That's wild.
Until the death of Stalin in 1953. And all this stuff happened, obviously, after the death of Stalin.
Great movie, by the way, and I know I've recommended it to you.
I'm gonna watch it. It's on my list.
But for everybody out there, go watch The Death of Stalin. It has Steve Buscemi and a couple other like big older names in there. It's good. It's they portray everything in a really like lighthearted kind of pseudo historical like fun light.
Nice.
Even though, like, it was a fucking nightmare for,
I'm sure.
for all of the guys that are in there.
The power vacuum of that is
it's kind of a
crazy.
funny, like, political... Like, they get into, like, the politics of it and all the, like, backhand shit that everybody was trying to do. And, like, oh, well, if I stab this person in the back, I can help out this person. It's
all the scheming and everything.
they do it really well. And it's a fun one. Check it out. Yeah,
so he dies. Whole bunch of stuff happens. Khrushchev comes in and... He starts letting people out of the gulags, and they really try to de-Stalinify the country.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Because he was a little too authoritarian for the
Yeah.
communists, which is pretty interesting. So there's like I think it's called the Khrushchev thaw, where it kind of, it's kind of melting away, kind of things are starting to move. People aren't being sent to gulags as often. People are actually being released. And as these people are being released from these huge colonies and prisons, they start leaking out into the general population. And they've still, for the most part, got that code. And that's when they start to, where the mafia itself, as we see it today, forms. Mafias,
Yeah.
the families, the groups. I say families, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, as they start to leak out of the prisons, they start setting up all this stuff, and then Khrushchev kind of lessens the restrictions on private businesses. So now they can start forming businesses like the Italian Mafia.
Okay. Damn.
And all this stuff happens, and then, fall of the Soviet Union creates a huge power vacuum, creates a huge amount of instability in the region where they can go in and just say, oh, Soviet nuclear weapon program, we can take uranium, we can take nuclear secrets, and we can
Jesus.
sell it to people in the Middle East.
God damn.
And they did. They are known to have done that. They start setting up human trafficking, drugs, and just everything that you would expect a mafia family to do.
Yeah.
And that's another one of those differences. The Italian mafia and most of the other mafias didn't have the opportunity of having a huge portion of a continent completely destabilized
Exactly.
for
They
them
didn't
to
have, like,
slip in.
a governmental collapse.
Yeah, which allows them to just take over, essentially.
Wow.
Like, who do they have to fight? The military? Yeah, who's paying them?
Yeah, exactly.
They've got their money.
Damn.
So they explode in 1991 as the fall of the Soviet Union internationally. Up to this point, they were mostly just in Russia. But they're now international. They've created black markets everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of, today, over 6,000 groups, like different mafias, I guess. Hundreds of them have international reach. They're considered the best structured criminal superpower of the world. They have a quasi-military-like operation in some cases. They're not afraid to use mercenaries. And they have more corrupt politicians and government officials than any other crime group that we know about.
Fucking easily.
There are direct ties. Watch, this episode's going to get taken down for some reason. There are direct ties to Vladimir Putin getting elected because of two different mafia families.
Wow.
He didn't get elected.
So
He was chosen.
So it did kind of turn to a familial shift in the 90s when there was that huge destabilization. Obviously
the code became lessened and more
Yeah.
modernized.
Well,
and then,
it
and then
makes sense.
obviously you, like, as human beings, we instinctually put family members and close people, in
Yeah.
position of power. So it kind of became more that way as that code kind of fell apart. And we're going to talk about one of the, the bitch wars is one of those turning points where the code was affected.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh no, you're going to yawn. And I got to take a drink.
Yeah. It's interesting. And I mean, it makes sense. I was just curious because I was like, over the course of like 50 years, like, does it stay similar or does it shift?
It does shift. As
Interesting.
the Soviet Union shifts. And
And I mean, it would make sense with
Yeah.
that, like, complete collapse.
so Hitler invades the Soviet Union. Boom. Surprise World War II episode. Bet you didn't see it coming.
Wow. Who could have ever expected this?
Yeah. The majority of the workforce of labor in the Soviet Union was from these work camps.
Okay.
Despite the fact that it was like the statistics is a Gulag prisoner has half as much production as a free prisoner. They didn't care.
Yeah.
And also, interestingly, in the early Gulag system, a dude was thrown in there for political reasons, and he wrote a letter. And this is when it was like not bad to be in the 30s, early 30s, when it was not that horrible to be in a Gulag. Like, you got enough food,
Yeah.
you had decent shelter, because they knew it was just like, it was basically a 60-hour-a-week job.
Yeah.
Probably
not
a little worse than
not
that.
the
but-
gulag that you're. That
Yeah, not the
everyone's
gulag that you're thinking
of.
about.
Yeah.
Well, this guy was like, hey, well, if you were to feed us based on how much work we give, you'd make a lot more. Like, we'd produce a lot more.
What a dick.
It's like when Hermes on
fucking
Futurama
asshole.
goes to the work camp and he just
audits it.
he
pretty
audits
much.
it. Yeah, this guy did that, and he wrote a letter to the commander. Within 2 months, he was the commander of his own camp.
What a piece of shit.
And
dude.
all of his policies just started to get rolled out. And
they
then the
were
Gulag
all
became what you're thinking of.
Yeah, I was gonna say
They were not
all
good.
Anti-prisoner.
They started like the pay for work
policies.
policy, where it was based on how much you produce is how much
we'll
you
give you this many
eat,
pennies,
which will kill off all the weak prisoners early.
Oh my god.
Funny side note on that. Not really funny, horrible,
Yeah,
but very interesting. Like, why would you write a letter,
What a fucking asshole.
right?
I know how I
he
can get on
definitely-
top.
Yeah, he definitely
by
saw
shitting
a way.
on my equal.
And guess how long he was sentenced?
Probably like 6 months.
8 years.
Oh Jesus.
And he was like, I'll just make it worse for everybody
Yeah.
else.
Well, if I'm miserable for 8 years.
Exactly. So, because of this, a lot of the production.
Sorry to backtrack.
Oh no, you're good.
Can you imagine if they got that and they're like, dude's got a point, kill him.
That would have been better for the system
And
overall.
then they just fucking implement everything and do exactly like it still escalates to where it got to. It's just the idea man behind it.
Yeah, he
They
died
were like,
immediately.
well, he was a prison. Why the fuck would we keep him alive?
Yeah.
He would have been able to take credit for his intellectual property of torturing prisoners.
Property? Get in the gulag. No, so
Property of the state now, bitch.
yeah, and that's everything. So, as countries move to war, their production turns to wartime shit. Unfortunately, that means they're no longer producing as much food as they were,
Yeah.
and immediately starvation starts to hit some of these gulags, which is great because they're
Jesus,
making
yeah.
bullets. Actually, they waited till later on to make bullets, but they're starting to get the raw materials. Then they start to get these like people with technical skills, and they'll send them out to a penal colony that builds tanks.
Yeah.
They'll send this group out to a penal colony that builds guns.
Yeah.
They'll send this group to a gulag that builds bullets.
Yeah. They'll send them to this one that is a nuclear reactor.
Yeah. And meanwhile, nobody's farming, really. Like, there's not a lot of farming. But because, and we've talked about this a lot, the reports that went out, the estimations that went out, all the statistical shit that came out of the Soviet Union was overinflated.
Oh, of course.
Because they said, we have enough grain in reserve to continue for 2 years. They had like 6 months.
Despite everyone fucking starving and cutting back.
Exactly. So, it's not super great there. And if you know World War II because you're listening to this, Soviets have a lot of people. They don't have great commanders. They don't have great supplies. They don't have great rations. But they do have a phenomenal supply lines. They build a shitload of rail yards super early on, which saved their ass during the Operation Barbarossa or Barbossa. It's spelled Barbarossa. I don't know. When the Germans, the siege of Leningrad and all that stuff, the railroads saved their ass, who were put there by all the, Gulag people, all these mafia families, essentially.
God.
Quasi-mafia families. So Stalin gets this great idea. He's like, yes, this is our main workforce, but we need more people because the shit that they're making is kind of trash. Those PPSHs fall apart. Those tanks are made of cheese and balsa wood. So let's just
Nothing's really changed.
Yeah. Let's just recruit people from the Gulag system as our soldiers. They'll be the frontline soldiers. So he'll be like, hey, if you volunteer for service, every year that you serve is 3 years off your sentence.
Isn't that what they're currently doing with the Ukraine thing?
Basically, yeah.
They
Yes.
implemented the same like prison.
Same concept.
You get time
yeah.
off of your sentence.
You get a partially commuted sentence based on how long you're there.
God damn it.
With the idea being that anybody who actually takes the deal is sent directly to the front lines. Under-equipped, underfed. They're already starving.
Yeah.
So,
Typical
fantastic
Russia.
idea. They
Typical
haven't really
Russian
changed that
response.
much.
Yeah.
At least the government. So
History repeats itself. Jesus.
a good group of people are like, I'm only in here for 6 years.
dead.
I only have 2 years left. Why not?
Yeah.
I'll jump in. I'll be freed. And then I don't have to worry about, that code of honor that says don't work with cops or the military.
Yeah. I was either going to die in the fucking gulags or I can just go die in the front lines.
Yeah. So they said, okay, cool. Let's do it. And a lot of people did it. People who stayed behind, the anti-authoritarian crime families, or groups, syndicates. I say family because that's just what you think of.
Yeah, they were so anti-government.
They were so anti-government. They were like,
anti-war.
no.
They're like, if you fucking join this, you're done, right?
Yeah, you're a traitor. And
okay.
you're the
I see.
lowest rank in our caste system, which is a Suka. You've made a bitch out of yourself, is the direct translation, which is great. And they are still in the gulag, still doing the work prison stuff, but they're like, ooh, fuck these guys. These guys are the absolute worst. They're taking the easy way out and they're breaking our code. And you're not going to
not
fuck
the people
with
you want to
us.
fuck over.
Really?
Yeah. I don't give a shit what mafia you're fucking over. You don't fuck over any mafia.
You don't. And even there are actually a couple big bosses who take the deal.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the people who stayed back feel so betrayed that it just stews within the prisons.
Yeah. And then somebody else steps into power and is like, we're going to fucking kill him.
Yeah, fuck these guys. So I believe the plural of Suka is Suki.
Suki.
I think.
It's cheeky-breaky.
I didn't look it up. I could have. I have the internet. I didn't. But.
I'll look it up. I got you.
All right. The bitches went to the bloodiest front lines of the Eastern Front, and they they fought. They did everything that you would expect from the Red Army. And some of the ones with longer sentences were returned to the gulag because they worked out 6 of the 9 years or 6 of the 8 years from being there, so they had to go back. And a lot of did you find it?
Working on it.
Okay. It would be weird. It doesn't really matter. But some of the other people who came back from the war, they're some of the worst PTSD, I'm sure. Some of the worst, shell shock possible. They saw some of the worst fighting. And, they're living in a totalitarian state where they don't have to have a reason to send you to prison. So I'm 100% sure a ton of people came back, released, and were just picked up and sent right back because they had PTSD or, had a mental breakdown or something.
Yeah.
So they were just sent right back. And throughout the war, for some reason, POWs, Russian POWs, were seen as traitors by the Soviets.
Really?
So if you were captured by a German and then they did a troop exchange to get you back, or they liberated your POW camp, you were a traitor because you allowed yourself to get captured
Instead of fighting
fighting to the death.
Huh.
Yeah, weird take.
So they're like, hey, thanks to our prisoners of war, we did this prisoner exchange. You got your guys back that you're going to utilize. We're just going to put ours in a prison colony again.
For the economy. Those are their factories.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
You see? It kind of works.
Yeah.
If
Now I
you're
see what
fucking
they're-
psycho.
Yeah, if you're delusional.
Yeah. So they would be sent off to places similar to Nazino Island to start producing more
I
shit.
see. Okay.
And, immediately they're in hot water because they're now reintroduced back into the system where they were they could have been a pretty high-ranking crime syndicate dude. And now
They could have been a high-ranking military official.
Yeah. And
but
now they
they're-
are bottom of the cast.
Yeah.
They are bitches. They don't have any control. They get the worst jobs. They have the worst conditions. They eat the less or the least.
It's not even back to square one. It's back to negative square 1 million.
Yeah, they are completely shit on.
Wowza,
They had a one specific that I read about punishment that a lot of these people went through called clogging the throat. They would get a piece of metal, lay them on their back, open their mouth, put the metal in it, and then just chisel.
Wow, good
straight
old
through.
Russian ingenuity.
Yeah, really creative.
I call this one chisel the throat.
Yeah.
And my next trick will be chisel the asshole.
Yeah, or peel off
And
the fingernails.
based on what happened on this last one, I'm sure you can imagine what we're about to do.
Yeah, it's yeah. I bet you can't guess. So
This one will surprise you.
so for a little bit, they were like, I'll rise my way through the ranks. You know, there are people who will still, you know, respect me for this. No. So they start they start working directly with the guards because they already broke the taboo. So why wouldn't they work with the guards?
Yeah, exactly.
And then the guards gave them better conditions, better treatment, better jobs, better food.
Yeah, I mean, you go from, like, why not just be what you are? Like, you are what you eat. You're just like, fuck it. If I'm a Suka, I'll be a fucking Suka. Like,
Yeah, straight up. Because what do they have to lose?
Exactly.
Because they're on the -1 tier.
wow.
So it really kind of backfired on the other guys. So the anti-authoritarians, the guys who stayed behind, are pissed.
Oh, I'm sure.
They are completely pissed off, and they start just killing the Suki.
Of course, yeah.
And the problem is, the Suki were soldiers. They have, like, training of sorts. They are kind of better at killing now. They
Yeah.
were kind of trained to kill a lot better.
Yeah, they got a little bit of military training in their time away from prison camps.
Yeah. So they're retaliating, and it amps up into the bitch wars, where throughout the gulags, multiple colonies,
We're just having
it was
these
the
Suka
Suki
wars.
versus the previous ones. And
Wow.
they'd beat the shit out of each other, they'd kill each other, and the guards were like, okay, cool.
Not our problem.
Keep going.
You would have fucking died here anyway.
Yeah, we're already overcrowded.
Yeah.
And they've been trying to, like, reduce the population without releasing anybody.
Meanwhile, the state's like, our production, fuck.
No, the state's like, oh, the population's going down. We
hey,
have less
that's
prisoners
less food
now.
we have to pay
We don't have
for.
to feed them.
Wow.
And also in the gulags, another little side tangent. They had a policy where if you were about to die, they would officially release you from the gulags. So the numbers of the people who were released and survived the gulags are totally skewed. Because if you got, like,
Because no one's dying in the gulags. They're
Yeah,
just being
they
released
died
shortly before
10
they died
feet out the door.
outside of the gulags.
Really,
It's like the semantics
Interesting.
of it.
yeah,
God.
that's real. Dude,
They didn't
the
die-
whole Soviet Union was
Well,
semantics.
Technically speaking, they didn't die in the gulag.
We freed them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all massacres start happening where
The bullet in the
know.
back of his brain didn't kill him until he fell out of the window.
he was still breathing
God.
until he hit the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
5 feet from the fucking gates.
so massacres happened where they would be, you know, this gang would just completely decimate this gang, that gang would come back in retaliation and destroy this gang, and it really became a huge issue. But at this point, you know, the war's over. And we're getting into this. Stalin's kind of trying to recover all of the death and the loss of productivity that happened after, you know, because of the war, because of the millions of people.
Because of him.
Because of him, yeah. So, and at this time, more and more soldiers are showing up.
Oh, God.
People who were, you know, you don't just end of the war and all your troops go home. It takes a long time to bring people back. So more and more ex-soldiers, more and more vets are showing up to the gulags, and all of a sudden, the old-timers they're overrun.
Yeah.
They're outranked, they're outpopulated. I don't know the word I'm trying to think. And man, they were not ready. They get outnumbered. I wrote it down. There we go. And, you know, again, these were people who saw combat.
Yeah.
People who very likely saw hand-to-hand combat because they weren't given a gun. They were just given a magazine.
God damn.
And this just kept happening until 1952. 1952, this is what I've heard. I talk about it. I'll just talk about it now. Obviously, because this happened in a prison system 75 years ago, it's really hard to find written primary sources of these wars.
Uh-huh.
So this part is kind of a this is what they think happened. This
Okay.
is what probably happened, but nobody wrote it down. That is willing to talk to a journalist
Yeah,
or a
exactly.
historian. Like, most of this comes from, deathbed confessions or, people who were involved in it and were just remembering it. So this part, 1952, the old-timers were able to negotiate. They came to a truce, basically, with the bitches and the old-timers. The old-timers were able to keep their ranks and run their prisons in what were designated as black gulags or black prisons.
Okay.
So they got to maintain and solidify their power like they did before in these prisons. The other half of the prisons were called red prisons. Those prisons were run by the guards and the bitches.
Damn.
They were already colluding, so why not continue? So in the black gulags, guards were just kind of there. They didn't have to do anything, though, because it was run, and the people were prevented from escaping by the crime families.
God, okay.
And then the red systems were set up to be run by the guards in collusion with the gangs. So they were kind of able to go their separate way for the most part and separate themselves, which is I mean, that's a way to fix it, right?
Yeah, it's an approach.
It's an approach. But then, as we know, in 1953, Stalin has a stroke. He's dead. Khrushchev takes over. Thousands of prisoners are being released from the gulags.
You don't have your fucking prison guards to cover for you anymore, though.
Yeah, you don't need them anymore because you're out of the prison. But now you have police and you have military and you have government. Because before, the people, the traditionalists wouldn't even get a corrupt politician because they're working with a politician.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even work with a factory foreman. That's how serious they were.
Jesus.
So I mean, obviously there was a ton of corruption, but it wasn't from those guys.
Yeah.
It's from other people. So as they're being released, Khrushchev gives a general amnesty kind of order where anybody who's in the gulag, not for political reasons, or was it for political reasons, and your sentence is under 5 years, you're out. Thousands of people are released. And this kind of brings both forms, this traditionalist, thieves guild type thing, and the newer bitches out into the general population. And as I mentioned before, Khrushchev lessens the restrictions on private business ownership. A little too late. And there are still a few groups, over a dozen probably, is the estimation, who are still the traditionalist, follow the thieves' code as it was. While the rest of them, the human traffickers and the international dudes and the cocaine dealers and all this, they're descended from the bitches.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting that the Russian Mafia bitch... No, I didn't.
Yeah, right.
Descended from, please don't kill me. But, yeah, so these wars completely changed and kind of splintered off and created a new, more modern code that still followed.
Yeah.
But,
Still,
now
it's still
they have
deviated from where it started.
Yeah. But they, now they have owned the government, essentially.
Yeah.
And many other governments and have all this power and are completely insanely powerful and relevant, and they've been able to just in America, they've been able to just slip under the radar entirely. They're in and active in America.
Damn. I mean,
Never
figures.
spoken about. There was even a dude in the FBI in the 90s who was like, the Russian Mafia is the greatest threat to the United States.
Really?
In the 1990s. And then in 2012, there was all this stuff. And then recently, from 2012 on, there's been a lot more crackdown and persecution of people involved just in the U.S. But it took them, till now to do anything.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are the bitch wars.
Fucking Suka wars.
Prison violence.
Crazy. I love it.
Go watch The Green Mile.
Yeah. Do it. Great movie.
Fantastic. So
Well,
There you go. Now you
Hell
know.
Yeah, now I know. Well, as always, if you guys would like an extra episode that comes out on the first day of the month after the month that it was supposed to come out in, subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/points-o-pressure. An exclusive episode every month. We have 30 plus sloppy seconds episodes on there. AJ is working on a series called Voices. And then if you can't afford it, don't pay for it. We don't take offense to it, but go create a free account on our Patreon. We'd really appreciate it. And we'll have some additional content on there for you guys. And we'll announce it as we go. So you got those names?
Yeah. We've got the chairperson. Chairperson. Good God.
Chairperson.
We've got the chair people. Mini D. Hope you're enjoying that fresh VR porn.
Yeah.
Thomas and Toddle Waddle. Thank you guys so much.
We really appreciate you guys.
They are they're the I forgot the name of the high-ranking Russian dudes because I didn't talk about it on this episode. I just knew it, and then I forgot
it. I don't know.
They're the Godfathers.
Yeah, that's true.
And then, of course, we've got Abby, AJ's Third Nut, Kitty Titties, Nordic Thunder, Weston, Dark Runner, D's Nuts, G-Dog, Hayden, Lara Vo, and Lindo. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. You let me keep learning about new things.
Yeah.
For no reason.
Same.
No, just because I like to.
Right? Make sure your addresses are up to date. We're going to send out an email here in the next couple of weeks. Make sure everything on Patreon is up to date.
Yes, very important.
It's terribly important. As always, check out our Instagram. She puts a lot of work into it. I know we talk about it a lot, but she certainly deserves the credit for listening to us and putting stuff on there and dealing with us on a daily basis. So at Points O Pressure on Instagram. And if you guys ever have any suggestions for movies, TV shows, books, magazines, vintage porn,
modern
show
porn
ideas, fucking anything that you can think of, by all means, reach out to us on Instagram at pointsopressure. Email us at ppdnaj, all the letters, at gmail.com, or go to our website, pointsopressure.com. Go to the contact us page, leave us a voicemail or send us an email, and we'll catch you guys next Monday.